What happens when a man driven by hatred and pride steps into the holiest place on earth with the intention to desecrate it? Can a heart filled with malice truly withstand the overwhelming power of divine presence? This is the story of Samuel, a pastor who embarked on a journey to Mecca with a dark plan, only to find himself face to face with a force far greater than he could ever imagine. But how did his journey unfold, and what lessons can we learn from his transformation? Samuel was a respected pastor in a small town on the eastern coast of the United States. For over 20 years he had guided his congregation with sermons that inspired and uplifted. But beneath his wise words and friendly smile, Samuel harbored a deep-seated hatred for other religions, particularly Islam. This hatred festered in his heart, growing stronger with each passing year. One day, during a meeting of religious leaders, Samuel overheard a conversation about the black stone in the Kaaba, the sacred stone in Mecca that Muslims kiss and pray to during their pilgrimage. For Muslims, the black stone is a symbol of their covenant with God, a tangible connection to the divine. But for Samuel, it represented everything he despised about Islam. He saw it as a challenge to his own faith, a symbol of a religion he believed to be false. Driven by a desire to prove the superiority of his own religion, Samuel hatched a plan. He would travel to Mecca, disguise himself as a Muslim, and desecrate the black stone. It was a bold, audacious plan, one that would require careful preparation and unwavering determination. But Samuel was confident. He believed that his intelligence and cunning would allow him to succeed where others would fail. The plan takes shape. Samuel began his preparations in secret. He studied Islam, learning the prayers, rituals, and traditions associated with the Hajj pilgrimage. He watched videos, read books, and even met with a few Muslims to gather information. Every night he practiced reciting Arabic phrases, determined to perfect his disguise. After months of preparation, Samuel obtained a Hajj visa under a fake name. He felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as he boarded the plane to Saudi Arabia. But his determination outweighed his fear. He was convinced that his plan would succeed, that he would prove once and for all the superiority of his faith. Arrival in Mecca. When Samuel arrived in Mecca, he was struck by the sheer scale of the pilgrimage. Thousands of Muslims from all over the world had gathered to perform Hajj, their faces filled with devotion and reverence. Samuel felt like an outsider, a wolf in sheep's clothing, but he pushed aside his unease, focusing on his goal. As he approached the Grand Mosque, Samuel felt a growing sense of tension. The air was thick with spirituality, and the sight of the Kaaba filled him with a strange mix of awe and hatred. He followed the crowd of pilgrims, blending in as best he could. But with each step, he felt the weight of his intentions pressing down on him. The confrontation with the black stone. Finally, Samuel stood before the black stone. It was smaller than he had imagined, but its significance was undeniable. For a moment he hesitated. The sight of so many people praying with such sincerity made him question his plan. But his hatred and pride quickly pushed aside any doubts. With trembling hands, Samuel prepared to spit on the black stone. But as he did, something extraordinary happened. His body suddenly felt heavy, as if an unseen force was restraining him. He tried to move, but his limbs refused to obey. Panic set in as he realized that he was no longer in control. The consequences. Samuel's body began to convulse, and he collapsed to the ground. The pilgrims around him were shocked, and mosque staff quickly rushed to his aid. He was taken to a hospital, where doctors struggled to explain his condition. Physically, there was no clear cause for his seizures and weakness. But Samuel knew the truth. He had defied a sacred place, and now he was facing the consequences. As he lay in the hospital bed, Samuel was consumed by regret and fear. The pain he felt was not just physical, it was spiritual. He realized that his actions had angered a force far greater than himself. The black stone, which he had sought to desecrate, had become a symbol of his own downfall, a glimmer of redemption. In the days that followed, Samuel's condition did not improve, but something inside him began to change. He was visited by an elderly Muslim woman who spoke to him with kindness and compassion. She told him that Allah is the most forgiving, and that even those who have committed great sins can find redemption if they repent with a sincere heart. Her words struck a chord with Samuel. For the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. He realized that his journey to Mecca had not been about proving the superiority of his faith, but about confronting his own arrogance and hatred. He had sought to degrade the black stone, but in the end, it was his own heart that had been humbled. Samuel's story raises important questions about the nature of faith, the power of sacred spaces, and the consequences of hatred. What does it mean to truly respect the beliefs of others? And how can we find redemption when we have strayed so far from the path of righteousness? Samuel's actions were driven by a misguided sense of superiority and a desire to prove the dominance of his own faith. But his journey serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of religious extremism and the importance of humility. True leadership, whether in religion or in life, requires compassion, understanding, and a willingness to learn from others. He justified his actions as God's work, but a flicker of doubt remained. He told himself that he was doing the Lord's bidding, that his actions were righteous and just. But in the quiet moments, when he was alone with his thoughts, the doubt crept in. Was he truly following God's will, or was he merely a pawn in a larger, more sinister game? The question gnawed at him, a persistent whisper that he could not silence. The journey to Mecca was long, stretching across vast deserts and bustling cities. Each mile brought them closer to their spiritual destination, yet the road seemed endless. Each step was heavy with anticipation, the weight of their hopes and dreams pressing down on their weary feet. The sun beat down mercilessly, adding to their exhaustion. Samuel felt the eyes of other pilgrims on him, their faith palpable in the air. It was as if their collective devotion created an invisible bond, uniting them in their shared purpose. He despised their closeness, yet craved their acceptance. The conflicting emotions churned within him, making him feel like an outsider in a sea of believers. His disguise felt like a second skin, suffocating him. The traditional attire, meant to symbolize unity and humility, only served to remind him of his deception. He performed the rituals mechanically, his heart a stranger to the words. The prayers, recited with such fervor by others, felt hollow and meaningless to him. He felt like an imposter, a fraud. The isolation gnawed at him, making him question his purpose and the choices that led him here. The closer he got to the black stone, the heavier his guilt. Each step towards it felt like a step deeper into his own personal abyss. His hatred started to morph into something else, a strange mix of fear and awe. The sight of the Kaaba, majestic and imposing, stirred something deep within him, challenging his preconceived notions and emotions. Around him, pilgrims were lost in their own moments of spiritual awakening. Some were in tears, overwhelmed by the sanctity of the place, while others were deep in prayer, their faces serene and content. Samuel's expression began to soften. The walls he had built around his heart started to crumble, brick by brick. He could feel the beginnings of a transformation, a shift in his soul. Acts of kindness surrounded him. Pilgrims shared food and water, offering help to those in need. The sense of community was undeniable, and it began to seep into Samuel's consciousness. He accepted a drink from a fellow pilgrim, a hesitant smile forming on his lips. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental. For the first time, he felt a flicker of belonging. As they rested under the shade, sharing stories and laughter, Samuel listened intently. The tales of faith and perseverance resonated with him, slowly chipping away at his cynicism. He found himself joining in the conversation, his voice blending with theirs. The mix of emotions on his face was evident: confusion, hope, and a budding sense of acceptance. As they prepared for the next leg of their journey, determination shone in their eyes. Samuel felt a newfound resolve within him, a desire to see this pilgrimage through to the end. Walking with the pilgrims, his steps felt more assured. The path ahead was still long and arduous, but he no longer felt alone. The journey to the unknown had become a journey of self-discovery. Finally, he stood before the Kaaba, the black stone within reach. The air crackled with energy, the prayers of millions resonating through time. He felt the eyes of his ancestors upon him, their judgment heavy on his soul. His plan, once so clear, now seemed ludicrous. Could he really go through with it? Could he defile something so sacred to millions? Doubt, like a venomous snake, coiled around his heart, squeezing the air from his lungs. As he reached out to touch the black stone, a surge of energy knocked him to the ground. He lay there, helpless, his carefully constructed facade crumbling around him. He felt exposed, vulnerable, judged. He saw the faces of the people he had condemned, their faith shining in their eyes. He saw the beauty in their diversity, the universality of their prayers. He saw the ugliness of his hatred, the poison it had injected into his soul. In that moment of vulnerability, something shifted within him. The hatred that had consumed him for so long evaporated. replaced by a profound sense of shame and remorse. He had been so blind, so lost in his own prejudice. He realized the true meaning of faith, the power of love and compassion. He realized that his God and their God were one and the same, worshipped in different languages, under different skies. He confessed his true intentions, his voice trembling with shame. He expected anger, condemnation, even violence. Instead, he was met with compassion. The pilgrims, instead of punishing him, helped him up, offered him water, and embraced him with forgiveness. Their forgiveness, their unwavering faith broke him completely. He wept tears of gratitude, of relief, of shame. He had come to destroy, and instead he found redemption. His journey back was a pilgrimage of a different kind, a journey inward, a confrontation with his own demons. He knew he had a long road ahead, a lot to atone for, but he was no longer afraid. He had found forgiveness in the most unexpected place. He returned to his community a changed man. He preached love, not with empty words, but with the conviction of someone who had seen the face of God in the eyes of strangers. Samuel's story is a reminder that hatred is a choice, and so is love. It is a testament to the power of forgiveness, the transformative power of faith. It is a bridge of understanding, a call for unity in a world often divided by fear and ignorance. For in the end, we are all pilgrims on this journey of life, searching for meaning. The story of Samuel is a powerful reminder that no matter how far we stray, there is always a path to redemption. It is a story of transformation, of a man who set out to destroy but instead found himself humbled and changed. As we navigate our own journeys, let us remember the importance of humility, compassion, and respect for the beliefs of others. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, the true measure of faith lies not in the desire to dominate, but in the willingness to understand and grow.